Hey everybody, welcome to the RP Tastemaker channel where we discuss matters of taste. Today we're going to be talking about craft beer. What is it in 2022 and what is all this fuss about? Let's get into it. A lot of people I know enjoy craft beer, like this one, Bell's Two Hearted Ale. But did you know that according to some, this is not craft beer anymore? I'm going to get into why in this episode, but first, since this is my inaugural episode, I'm asking you, downright begging you, to like, subscribe, and share with anyone you know that you think would appreciate this content. Cheers. Okay, back to the beer. Bell's Two Hearted Ale. Considered by many, myself included, to be one of the finest beers ever produced. But according to changes in the beer industry, this is no longer considered a craft beer. Odd, right? Well, let's rewind the clock and explain how we got to this point. Back before Prohibition, there were around 4,000 breweries in the U.S. Most were small and served their local communities and region. Then, Prohibition killed them off, and what emerged after Prohibition were a small number of very large breweries that operated at an industrial scale, producing mainly light lagers. This went on for most of the 20th century until a few crazy homebrewers, like Larry Bell, in the 80s decided to take their homebrewed beers to market. Drinkers were intrigued by actual flavor in beer, and that kicked off a beer renaissance that continues to this day. At some point along the way, these few thousand new craft breweries came together to form an association called the Brewers Association. The Brewers Association developed a working definition of craft beer. It goes something like this. Craft beer is beer that is brewed by a small independent brewery. Simple enough, right? So what does small and independent mean? The Brewers Association decided anything under 6 million barrels is small, which seems generous since our friends at Bell's are only producing about 500,000 barrels per year, and they're one of the largest craft breweries in the nation. But okay, fair enough. Small, under 6 million, but what does independent mean? The Brewers Association says it means that less than 25% of a craft brewery is owned or controlled by an entity that is not itself a craft brewery. Anyway, this definition of independent is what has kicked many of these breweries like Bell's, Founders, New Belgium out of this craft beer club. And that is because we're at a point in the beer industry of acquisitions and consolidations where these multinational corporations are buying up great craft beer breweries. By the way, Bell's was acquired in 2021 by Australian-based beverage company Lion, which is itself a subsidiary of Japan-based Kirin. Now the good news is that regardless of all this, there has never been a better time to be a beer consumer than right now. I expect that regardless of ownership, brands like Bell's will continue to make great beer. But it again begs the question, in light of all these acquisitions of craft breweries by these huge corporations, how are we to think about craft beer in 2022? If you have any thoughts on this, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. In the meantime, I've got a couple thoughts. First, it's worth mentioning that beer is just beer. It's really pretty simple. It's malt, it's hops, it's yeast, and it's water. 4 ingredients make up beer. Anyone with time to learn the craft can make it well, from a home brewer to a huge corporation. And there's lots of great beers to drink. So I say, let's get to drinking it. I also think there's a way to think about what the difference is between large and small scale beer making. So I'll offer this. I see 2 categories of beer and beer experiences. First is what I would call grocery store beer. This includes beer that is widely distributed, from Bud Light to Two Hearted. And this is generally excellent mainstream beer. And the other category is what I would call local beer. It's a local brewery focused on serving its community, small and independently owned. This is where you experience true craft beer culture. Brewers who hang around the chat room to talk about beers. This is where the creativity and innovation is happening and where there is something additional about the experience. It's more than just good beer. And this brings us to why any of this even matters. It's about things like connection and community, and being a participant in a story. Well, that's it for this installment. I hope you'll join me in the next one, as I'm going to give you my list of top 5 grocery store beers. See you there. Cheers.